Welcome back to UDEcon. Today, I'm very excited to tell you we're joined by a very, very special guest called Ammar, who just finished his A level of economics and got his results yesterday. So, Ammar, tell us what you got and what your mark breakdown was.
So obviously I got an A star in economics. I got 96% paper one, 97% paper two, and 94% in paper three.
So yeah, massive well done. Not only getting the A star, absolutely smashing it out the park with the marks, and that's exactly what we expect from our students in the UDO Econ Academy. But yeah, this whole channel is just me explaining to you using my experience and my own A star how to get the A star. But I think it'd be really useful as well to get an ex-student on, well, a student who just did it, to see his perspective and his expertise. And these tips can be really useful for you going into year 12, going into year 13 to use in your revision. So just to get started, just give us a brief overview of your journey in economics.
So coming back from doing GCSE econ, I got a 9 in GCSE econ, and then a struggling start with year 12. I got a D in my year 12 mocks, which was due to not locking in and being unfocused and lazy. Really locked in the last 4 to 5 months for my UCAS, got A star predicted. Ended up getting an A star in my year 13 mocks, and then again an A star with a very high percent in my actual A levels.
Yeah, so of course, massive well done again with that end grade. But a question a lot of students always have, and it's almost like an imposter syndrome thing. But at any point of the year, or would you have identified? Did you think throughout the year you were an A star student throughout the entire year, or was it more like you were just trying to work as much as possible, hoping you get the A star?
So during year 12, 100%, I did not think I was an A star student until maybe the few months before my UCAS. I felt it was just when my confidence began to increase and increase. Um, Obviously, I felt more confident in my ability. So after getting the A star in my UCAS, I thought I was A star material. So I carried on with that mentality throughout year 13. And then my A star mentality, at times I might have doubted myself if I was still A star material doing year 13. But with my mock showing I got an A star and also in my A levels, it's just a small bar mentality thing that helped me um, make sure I got the A star in the end.
100%, 100%. And so you mentioned in year 12 you had a really good comeback. So you went from a D to an A star in your UCAS predicted. Can you run me through? So you mentioned you were putting a lot more work in, but what did that actually entail on a day-to-day basis?
So at
What
first
did
I
you?
So yeah, at first I wouldn't review my content after lessons. I wouldn't make notes. I wouldn't make flashcards. I wouldn't do practice questions. The main thing is practice questions. I'd go from maybe 5 to 10 minutes of reviewing econ a day to at least 1 to 2 hours a day of reviewing econ, and that could just be content, practice questions, making essay plans, understanding the basics of econ. So as long as you work up and work on your essays, your structures, on identifying content and gaps in your information, um, you do that regularly on a more repeated, often basis, you can definitely get the A star in economics.
Tell me about that gap, that jump. Everyone mentions it, that jump from year 12 to year 13. So, of course, in the end, in year 12, you did quite well. But how severe would you say that jump was between year 12 and year 13?
So everyone says year 13 is the worst year ever. So for econ, because I did it at GCSE, year 12 was basically just exactly the same as GCSE. So I found that easy. So coming to year 13, where it's new content, completely new content, even 25 markers, we didn't have that in year 12. So a whole big jump, a whole lot of information. It was a bit hard in the first few months catching up because we were going at quite fast pace ourselves as we finished content 2 months early before A levels. So at first it was really hard trying to fill out with all courseworks, and you've got other subjects as well in your hand. Trying to keep up with economics, it can be really stressful, really hard. But that's how hard year 13 can be. You've got to put in that effort and then just keep trying to do at least 1 to 2 hours a day. Make a plan every week to focus on economics and make sure you know what you're doing. Ask teachers for advice, and then yeah, it'll be hard at first. It is really grueling. It's really not as good as it seems. So prepare for that for sure. But if you're able to, if you have a plan, then you can cope for sure.
And I think a big jump for me between year 12 and year 13 is in year 12 you can kind of get away with lackluster exam structure and exam technique. Tell me about what was the big thing. And I remember initially in year 13 you were struggling quite a lot with exam technique. How was that improved? And what are your biggest tips?
100%. Like my analysis points weren't on track, and my application was poorly in my essays. So even my basic content knowledge, where you get the knowledge for KAA, my knowledge wasn't good either. So starting from the scratch of understanding the content itself, understanding what the definitions from the start, understanding what you're actually going to talk about in the essays. So the analysis just comes to you like in a click. So you understand it like very simple, and then it just like comes out your mouth without barely having to think. Application is also just something you just have to read up upon, know your stats and figures, and just implement them correctly in good context. Um, but yeah, just the more repeat, you just repeat over your 25 markers, 50 markers, even if it's the same, just make sure you get them spot on using the same essay structure, and then making sure you know how to use a KAA. You can definitely get an A star in economics once you repeat that rigorously.
Very good, very good. And specifically, with regards to UDEcon, how did he help with regards to the exam technique?
So yeah, to be fair, UDEcon did actually help me a lot. It helped me with my 25 markers, especially understanding how much knowledge and content is required and to get 24 or 25 out of 25 in those questions, um, and how to actually correctly implement application, how it can fit the context of your question and use that for additional chains of analysis after. So he was actually really helpful in making my essays more clear, more fluent, and just able to be more easier for the examiner to read, which helped me get the 96, 97% in my A-level economics.
Yeah, that's well done. And a big thing I remember, because of course I mentioned that's UDEcon, but of course it was me and you. But I remember one big problem where, of course, classic problem students have was that ability. I used to teach it to you as almost giving context or making your chains of analysis as step by step as possible. Of course, most students really struggle with not being able to, even if they have the content knowledge, not being able to demonstrate that to the examiner or not writing step by step chains. How did you improve that yourself? And what tips would you give to students?
So obviously, doing exam questions all the time with UDEcon really helped me a lot. He made me identify, like if I was using, for example, talking about increase of AB, instead of just stopping at like consumption, I would use other chains of analysis talking about multiply effect, accelerator effect, example, to increase niche marking points and like examiners would get impressed. So just understanding every single part of the content knowledge spec so that you can make your chains of analysis more unique and more free flowing in your answers. UDEcon was very helpful in making me understand where my gaps were and how to improve my answers in that way as well.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, cool. We're going to go into a bit more detail with regards to your content knowledge now. So, of course, I usually say, and I think you'll agree, to get that A star, to get anywhere near the A star, content mastery is a precursor. You have to have the content on lock every single spec point. The main question is,
Mm.
yeah, what's your opinions on how well did you know the content going into your exams?
So to be fair, I think it was development.
Yeah, yeah,
In theme four was the I remember it.
tiny bit.
Yeah, the little tiny part, but it also has a lot of niche things that can catch you out. So analyzing all the recent past papers, the trends and everything, papers getting easier and easier. Um, you try memorize the big topics, the main like questions that will come up, the high yield questions. Obviously, you have to also prepare for anything that can come up. For example, um, anything from development, any like buffer stocks, for example, that came up in 2024 or 2025, I believe, in
Yeah,
the section B, and that really surprised a lot of people. Thankfully, not my year, but yeah, 100%. I got lucky because the questions I did practice beforehand, some of them actually did end up coming into the exam. Like some questions I did do with UDEcon literally the night before, literally came in the exam the next day. So I was very fortunate for that to happen. But definitely focus on the high yield topics and the high yield content spec points. But also make sure you don't forget about the niche things like development, for example.
100%. And I worked with him all personally. I think he's massively underplaying himself here. He's been very humble. You don't get 97%, but I can tell you now, he knew the spec inside out. And even the niche spec points. I remember in your paper one, there was of course, with UDEcon, we go through all the high yield areas, all the areas that constantly come up, because our philosophy is that areas that come up in past papers, they are the highest yield areas to revise because that's what the examiners want to see. But if you remember to your paper one, there was that tradable pollution permits question, and this is why we emphasise so much. I think was it 10 marker?
It was
So
10 mark, yeah.
Yeah, every single little spec point you have to go through because you would have got like at least probably 10 out of 10 on that, and that's the reason. Yeah, it has never come up in an exam question, but because he knew the spec inside out, he managed to smash it out of the park. But yeah, would you anything to say on that?
But yeah. So for that question especially, like I I memorized every single theme one and theme two diagram, theme three, theme four. I knew every single diagram up by heart. You could have asked me any diagram, I could instantly write it. That's the level of like understanding you have to have in economics, that you can just write out any diagram you can as when someone asks. And then understanding the 2 points, you always need to make sure you have 2 points and 2 points in evaluation for every question that could come up, like pollution permits, maximum, minimum price, whatever. Just make sure you have 2 points and two evaluation that you can use in any type of question they ask. So having already done that for every kind of spec point I've done, um, they asked about pollution permits and I instantly knew what to talk about, like externalities. Um, the context was about electric cars, how that could affect businesses and the environment. So just understanding and making plans and doing practice questions on every spec point, which is what I did to get my marks, it's a good help for sure.
100%. And this is literally months of hard work. This is first learning the content early, getting ahead of your class, and then consolidating it over months, and then getting to the level where you're able to do exam questions, reviewing those exam questions, and then come exam season, you're constantly recapping everything, constantly learning more information. So it's not an easy journey, as you can tell, to get these like grades, the A star, and even higher than the A star, like the 97%. So yeah, definitely massive well done with that. But also, I want to emphasize more on your understanding of diagrams. You mentioned that you knew every diagram at like the click of a finger, but I believe it was actually more than that. Tell me about, especially one thing we massively emphasize is your depth of understanding with diagram, not
Yeah.
just like a classic one, of course, that negative externality market failure diagram. Tell me more about that. How much do you actually need to understand the diagram?
So, for example, for negative externality diagram, you need to know where the social equilibrium is, the private equilibrium, like like internalizing the externality. You need to know about like what each like the dead weight loss for the negative externality. You need to know like different parts of the diagram and able to use that in your chains of analysis. Like for example, as well in the trade diagram as well, you need to know like Q1 to Q4 is imports. You need to know about the consumer welfare, government welfare, and everything. I'm surprised I even remember like 3, 4 months after doing economics, but um, yeah, you just need to make sure you understand all the parts of the diagram thoroughly, so it helps you answer your essay question even more, and yeah, it can get you extra marks in economics.
100%. And that's where that exam technique is built of. It's, I think a lot of students, even some C grade students, would be able to recall Morse's diagrams, but his depth of understanding with diagrams, if I gave him a diagram, he would be able to write me a full chain of analysis about it. And that's the depth you need to get to. Not just understand the curves itself, understand what the curves actually mean and how you can write about them. That's the biggest thing. Just drawing an isolated diagram is not going to get you the marks. You then incorporating it into your chain, incorporating that alongside your application, and of course your application was superb as well. That is where the marks are, and that is why he was able to score so well. It's
Yeah.
a very simple theory, I think, and this is the method we try to like almost present to him, and he followed it. And this is complete props to him. The students I've had, which I'm the same tutor for all the students, but there's some students who get the 97% and some who don't, because if you follow the method, and he put all credit to him, he put the hard work in, he trusted the plan. There were many times, that we're actually going to this, there were many times throughout the year where, of course, as a student, you can't fully, especially with an essay subject, you can't grasp if you're on the A star or not. But tell us more about that. Tell us about your worries about getting the A star and what finally, yeah, just tell me more about that because I want to know what your thoughts. Because of course, I remember throughout the year sometimes you didn't think you were an A star student, but what allowed you to keep pushing?
So yeah, to be honest, my main inspiration, I heard about your economic score, to be fair, and that was my inspiration to beat you, which I think I have done. But
Yeah,
knowing knowing that like oh, at times I might have given my teacher an essay, might have got like 8 out of 15, something that might really put me down. But I understand my capability and how I know how to answer questions and how I know how to score well. So just the determination of wanting and just the hunger of getting the A star should carry you enough all the way to the end. So you should try to have some inspiration, some motivation of there. Like mine was to beat him in economics, and thankfully, putting all the hard work in ended up happening. But yeah, just constant practice and then having that hunger, constant hunger during the year 13, because that's what you need to push yourself through, despite any challenges you may face. Just to always drive to be better and get the answers correct.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
that's
And I want you to understand like that because there will be people watch, there's students watching this who will be in the exact same scenario as you. What message would you give them? The ones who feel like they're doing everything possible, they're putting all the hard work in, but they can't, they don't know whether they'll get that A star. So just almost advice to your previous self from 5 months ago, the person who knows he's done enough hard work, who almost deserves the A star, but just doesn't know whether he's going to achieve it. What advice would you give him?
So yeah, as someone who was in those shoes like earlier this year, doing questions over and over again and thinking you know it, and then sometimes you might get a low mark, and then actually you doubt yourself. But as long as you genuinely inside, you know, you're honest to yourself and you know the content inside and out, you just practice questions over and over again until you'll get there. Eventually, it might take time for you to perfect it, but as long as you perfect each and every question, and then you put it into an AI check, or you get your students, or you get your tutor to mark it or something, and your teachers to mark it, or other students as well to like look at it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, you just go over and over again, get other people's opinions, what you can do better. And if you generally put everything that you know, you should really be scoring high. Like when it comes to 2, 3 months before the exam, you should be feeling very confident, smashing papers every other week at least, getting really high marks. And it's just that having that confidence in yourself that you know you can do really good in economics, that you have the ability, you have the passion, you have the hunger to do well. That should increase your confidence slowly and gradually with the good results that you attain.
100%, 100%. I think mentality is a very underrated thing, but throughout the year, I think your mentality was really good. Like, you never, well, even with me, I don't think you ever missed a lesson. You were
Yeah.
always on me, messaging me things, messaging on the community, just constantly wanting to know more. That hunger definitely helped you push there. Also, a really underrated thing, small thing, I remember picking up on it slightly. I think you also had a very good friend group with regards to economics. Do you think that was useful? Tell me a bit more about that.
So to be honest, yeah. So me and my friends who they are going to the same university as me. So we had like it was like 4 or 5 of us. So we used to call every single day, to be fair. Talking about economics, going through plans together, reviewing content. So it kind of helped me as well, myself, like understand, well, there's actually some stuff that I thought I knew, but I actually don't know. And there's some more stuff that I could improve upon. So 100%, like some people might say going to the library and like discussing with friends is a waste of time. But if you actually have friends who are serious, who are actually focused and determined, because all these, my friends are going to top unis, you've got UCL, LSE, you've got these really top unis that they're going to. So I really do suggest that, like, if you've got really serious friends who really want to achieve really high in your exams, definitely discuss and spend time with them because you can help one another, and it's really great to see your friends succeed, and they would love to see you succeed as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think I remember a few times you'd bring like because we used to do the 2 points, two valuations quite a lot, and
yeah,
you'd sometimes present points that your friends presented, and it's quite interesting seeing unique perspectives. I think it's really
mm,
positive, and definitely I'm guessing it helped with your mentality as well. You know, almost that competition as well, trying to be better than them, not in a bad way, but in like a way that of course that competitive drive. I think it's definitely really positive.
yeah.
But no, a bit more with regards to just specifically for students because especially in year 12 or early in year 13 they're quite stuck with actually just how to learn the content. So just tell me, what was your method? Did you use textbooks? Did you use like revision notes,
Mm.
videos? How did you learn the content?
So for me, our school we had like PLCs, like booklets for like theme one, theme two, theme three, theme four. So that covered like it was straight to the point, only the content that you needed to know. So that's really important. 100% using like famous YouTubers. You know, you got UDEcon yourself. You've got Econ Plus Style. You've got Expert Tuition. Those people who are straight to the point and tell you every marking point that you need. Basically, what I did. Some people might not be a fan of it, but some people might. But what I did, I used to write notes. For me, writing out notes like again might be seem inefficient, but it helped me like that I'm writing it myself instead of just listening to it, like actively writing it. So it's like, oh yeah, I've written it before and I know what to write when something like this comes. And then the more active thing to do is actually putting that in exam practice. If I did something about like monopolies, for example, I wrote about monopolies, drew the diagram, analyzed it fully. I'd go on to answer a whole 5, 8, 10, 12, 15 marker, 25 marker even, just on monopolies. So I could get every part of monopolies and answer it and see how I do. If I scored bad, I'll do it again maybe a few days or a week after, learn content as well in between. So yeah, learning content by doing notes. Using flashcards for definitions is definitely good. 100% for definitions, use flashcards. Um, but yeah, just making sure you're rereading over notes at least, or writing it out, or making mind maps or plans for notes will definitely help you make your brain more active and remember it more often.
100%, 100%. And yeah, I think that's a really good method. So, like what you mentioned, you'd learn the content, then a massive thing, you'd review it, but then actually do questions on the content,
Mm.
identify your gaps, fill in those gaps, and then a few days after, I think that's a really good thing. A few days after, just attempt the same question, just making sure you fill those gaps in, and any other tiny bits you've missed out, just quickly attempt them again. So yeah. Okay, and what was your experience with your economics teacher? Since a lot of people, just in the nature of economics, the nature of supply and demand of economics teachers, some people don't have the best experience with the teachers, and we had quite a few experiences with the teachers. So tell us a bit about that.
So I had two teachers. One of them that was actually really nice. He was helpful. He was one of my favorite economic teachers ever. Made me fall in love. The other one, however, he was head of economics, but he was very strict. So a question I did with UDEcon, I raised it to him just to see if there's anything he thinks would improve on it, because I would like to get other people's recommendations, see what they think. And he fully said it was wrong. He said everything about it was awful. He said, this is apparently not what markers want, etc., etc. Even though it's the exact same thing I did in my A levels as well. What UDEcon told me ended up with a really, really high mark. And obviously, people who may have listened to him may have not have got a high mark following his structure. But 100%, UDEcon knows exactly what he's talking about. And obviously, knowing, listening to him, working with him, obviously, I have the understanding as well too. So obviously your teachers can put you down, but like for example, even for my history teacher, he used to shout to me every lesson I get a D in history, and
Yeah,
then now I'm 3 marks off an A star. So teachers can, it depends. You can get really helpful teachers and really negative ones. It's all about yourself, your mindset and mentality. If you have that inner belief, that actual confidence within you, that you think, yeah, you know what, I have the ability, I can get the A star, go all out for it. Don't really listen to what anyone, even your teachers, even your family, just make sure that you know yourself that you can get an A star and put your hard work and determination into it.
100%. I think I should definitely, as cliche as it sounds, mentality is a massive thing. But
Yeah.
also, one little thing I want to pick up on is I think the way you did content also was extremely, extremely productive, and it's a reason why it
Mm.
scored so well. Specifically, I remember telling you this right from the start. Is the way you want to learn content isn't just. I know you mentioned that writing it out, some people might not find it effective, but specifically what you're writing. You used to learn content in chains of analysis. Tell me
Mm.
more about that. So why is it so important to learn content in chains of analysis rather than just writing out like
Mm.
notes?
100%. Yeah. So when I say the notes I would write would be in chains of analysis and answering questions. So like for example, if there's a question talking about AD, if the topic was AD, for example, I wouldn't just write, oh, AD aggregate demand C plus I plus G plus X plus M. Instead, I would do for my notes, I'll do, oh, consumption is an injection into circular flow of income, would cause a multiplier effect, would increase GDP overall, would cause uh, increased living standards for, let's say, households and individuals and companies. So instead of just saying like the basic like, oh, C plus I plus G plus N and doing this 25%, 60%, 15%, actually implementing it and writing notes in the exam technique will understand that like if you see a question like that in the actual exam, you'll understand, oh, the question about consumption. I know the changes of analysis. I've written it over and over again. I've done so many practice questions on it over and over again that you understand, you know what you're saying, and you can implement that easily into your answer and get very high marks in it.
100%, 100%. A massive problem that initially students have is almost translating their content knowledge to the exam
Mm.
because they don't learn it in the chains. But when you're like Ammar, you learn it in the chains. It just means that I'm sure some questions came up in the actual exam where you just knew the chains, so it just straight almost
Mm.
just a recall at that point, not even having to use like your thinking ability. And that's also we'll come on to it later, but that is also a massive thing that helps you with timing. As we'll come to later, but
Mm.
I don't think you struggled much with timing over the three papers
Mm.
because your exam technique was at that level and you'd done so much time practice. But we'll come to that later. But no, going on to exam technique, I want to talk about your volume and really just can't speak, attribute this to your hard work. How
Yeah.
many exam questions, if you had to give me a rough estimate, do you think you did over year 13?
So, for example, I can tell you at least the papers. So,
Yeah.
I had completed every single edXL past paper at least twice. So, just from 2019 to 2025, as well as completing every international A level exam paper twice as well. So, I don't know how many that is. I think that's at least 16, 32
If,
exam papers at least. And
if we
then,
include paper threes, that's like
oh, paper
20,
freeze as well.
24, and then
Yeah,
that's almost 40 exam papers.
40. That's 48 just exam papers. And I used to do like just many practice questions If I thought that I had a, in my RAG, red, amber, green, if I thought I had a red in one of the gaps, I would just spend 2, 3 hours just go on and keep doing economics questions just on that
100%.
topic, for example. So if I had
100%.
to give you an estimate, I would say 48 exam papers and probably like, I don't know, at least 250 questions,
I think it's much more
250
than that.
questions.
I remember once sending you. You were struggling a bit on development. I sent you that question bank on
Oh
development.
yeah,
Like 30 minutes later, and you sent me, "I'm done," and that had
yeah,
like that had loads of questions in it. Like, easily, I would say ballpark figure over 700, 800 questions.
yeah,
Um,
fair
easily.
enough. Yeah, makes
And
sense.
that's
Yeah,
like, and you did papers several times and international papers for even more
yeah.
practice. But
Mm.
this is the thing. However naturally gifted you were, however much like you were skilled in economics, it is just hard work. It's the hours he put in. However much he got help by UDEcon, it's literally it's his hard work. Yeah, you can have all the tips, but it's his time and his efforts that got him that A star. And there's no student I've ever had or ever seen that gets A star without that hard work. So what would you say? Tell me about the hard work.
So especially in year 13, like year 12 is a bit more easygoing, but year 13, you really cannot waste a day. Like, okay, obviously take breaks and stuff, maybe have a Friday night out every month or two or so, but you really have to, you can't sacrifice because year 13 is all about sacrifice for your A levels. You either want it or you don't. And if you really want it, you put your everything into it every single day. So like for what I did, um, I used to go to every economic health session, and every like for all my subjects, everything, any help I can get, everything I could do. Ask my teachers, ask my tutors, ask my friends, ask many people in order to make sure I get that step ahead, that more confidence, make sure I'm confident in myself and my ability. So it's really about like putting everything like you put your like for example, people who go gym, for example, they're like struggling in the last rep, they're like putting everything all into it. You have to do
Mm-hmm.
the exact same for studies. You have to put like until you're fatigued, until you're really tired. Every single day, you need to put your all into it.
100%, 100%. And I think like it's just again just massive congrats to you. I don't think you had it easy at 13. I think everyone has like life circumstances as well, but just keep
Mm,
pushing through, keep that mentality. And also with regards to the exam questions, I think a massive thing you need to understand is that most of your exam questions, and one thing I really pushed to you was to not just plan these exam questions, actually write them out. I think that's a big game changer for you as well. What 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 did it teach you actually having to write out the exam question in the structure rather
mm.
than just planning exam questions?
So obviously, like I was saying earlier, like as a plan, I'll do like 25 marker, 2 points, three evaluations. Like obviously writing it out like just a sentence long is not really going to help you like understand how to answer it. So obviously do that at a start. Like if you see an exam question, like write out the two like general points and the general like points for evaluation. But the real practice to where you can really get those marks is you have to do pages upon pages of actual writing the whole answers. Because not only you can get that to get marked and get understand where your quality is, but it's also good exam practice that if your application is good, if your analysis is good, if your content knowledge is good. So you just writing it out over and over again, writing the actual essays out instead of just doing like 1 or 2 lines for like, I'm going to do this point, that's it, this point, that's it. Making sure you apply application, apply analysis, make sure your knowledge is all coherent as well. So just putting that all in together in a fully structured essay from introduction to the conclusion will help you increase your ability and confidence. And yeah, you'll get the A star in the end if you do that over and over again.
Okay. And tell me about now. So we mentioned writing out essays, and one big reason I promoted this to you was also timing. How did you find your timing in your A levels? But and then what is the general consensus around timing in Edexcel?
So paper one, paper two, the timing is okay. Like for me at first, paper one, paper two, because we didn't start paper three until like the end of year 13. But paper one, paper two, at first I was finding it too good to be true. Like, because my quality wasn't really there, I would finish like maybe 5, 10 minutes early. As soon as I ramped up my quality, understood content more, I was finishing maybe 1 or 2 minutes spare, maybe just in time with these papers. I remember in my paper one, I finished with a minute to spare, just to look over my section A, and paper two, I just finished my conclusion in my essay. I just able to finish. But paper one, paper two is much, much better than paper three. Paper three is a devil. Generally, like no joke, it's really hard. It's really you've got two essays and two section Bs more or less to really fit in 2 hours. So that you have to be really on top of your exam practice and essay. If you can write your essays quickly in like 20-25 minutes of time maximum, uh, you're able to smash with your timing and able to put in good quality and good content as well.
100%, 100%. And like I said, initially your timing is really fine because you don't have that quality. But then when you get to that A star level, you have that knowledge, you have that exam technique. Then getting that down in time is extremely difficult. And I think you almost undermined it there, where it's just the amount of practice you did under time conditions meant that in his exam he was almost perfect with his timing. It wasn't like he mentioned, he finished 1 minute early. I think that's perfect. He didn't finish too early. Like 5 minutes early, there's still a lot of time there to finish. He just finished right at the end and was going to the last minute. I think that's the perfect way, and just meaning that he could just fit every single little thing he wanted in. But now with your paper three also, I remember we went through a lot for paper three because I call it the killer paper, as like you mentioned, it is a
Yeah.
bit of a it's a devil of a paper. And give them a bit of tips with paper three, because of course one of our biggest tips was the cost revenue diagrams. Give me some of your big tips with paper three.
So paper three, people would think that the content in paper one and paper two wouldn't come into paper three. That's not entirely true. There were like a few 5 and 12 markers that actually ended up coming up as the same content, but 25 markers were different for sure. Um, all I can say is that like just understanding, so cost revenue diagram you always have to use in the 25 marker. Every single essay you use in 25 marker, you have to use a cost revenue diagram. Whether it makes sense to you or not, you just have to use it and try to explain it to the best ability. So for the micro 25 marker, always use a cost and revenue diagram for sure. And then hopefully you can try get a macro point out of it as well.
100%. And a big thing with paper three also, I think, which is massively underrated with your other subjects, how important is it to not like completely abandon your paper three, where of course you've probably got your stress of, like, I think maths is around that same time. How important is it to make sure you maintain your paper three practice alongside all your other subjects? Since of course you pretty much got three A stars. So walk us through it, how you did it.
So yeah, basically, my first two papers of A level itself was on the very first day, 11th of May, was economics paper one, and the week after was my second A level paper, which was economics paper two, and I didn't have another economics paper, paper three, for another 2-3 weeks, and I had maths in between, I had history in between. So by then I had the content under my, like I could in a click, I just understood, I knew everything. So it wasn't me reviewing content; it was basically me doing maybe 25 mark or 12 mark just in like 12 minutes, or 25 mark in 20 minutes, just making sure my ability to do the essays in time condition were good. Because the timing in paper three is a real big killer, but to be able to do it in good timing is the main thing, 100%.
100%. And I want to just emphasize, like, his mark is incredible. Where paper three is a big reason why we pushed it so much as well. Is that we usually call it the big drop off paper, where you can kill a grade, but that consistency over his papers is incredible. Where like 97, 96, 95, where you're just absolutely smashing it out of the park in every single paper, and that is attributed to his excellent content knowledge, but also massive work on exam technique. Because, like you mentioned, timing is horrible in paper three, but he managed to squeeze it all in, and that's the thing. Even though it is really difficult, the top students, the A star students, will still be able to do it. So you need to adapt to those conditions. And as you know, sitting two of the really hard A levels, alongside doing maths, alongside his other subjects, he was still, there's no excuses basically, and you just have to keep pushing and keep doing it. But
Yeah.
now, of course, scoring so well, talk us through the specifics. What was your like essay structure like? Yeah, how would you go through a 25 mark question if you remember? It's been a few months.
So it's been a few months, but like, okay, so obviously you do your definitions at the very top, right? So if they ask you a certain key term in the question, you define that instantly. So if it talks about maximum price, minimum price, you just define that instantly. And then that's your introduction. You don't have to do anything else for it. Then you do one point, you do knowledge, application, and analysis. So you'd want to do your knowledge, stating out your point, basically, application, putting in any real world application that fits the context, and you can build off on that. Application, at least six to 8 points of application points of chains of analysis that can flow and answers the correct question directly. Just make sure that when you're answering the question in your KA points, you answer and you always refer back to the question itself. Make sure that the last few sentences of your paragraph always go back and relate to the question. So, and when you do an evaluation, your evaluation should counter one of the chains of analysis in your original point. So if I was talking about like consumption, you talk about consumption increase AD example, but then you talk about how that can cause demand push inflation. the demand, yes, demand pull inflation. Sorry, it can cause demand pull inflation, and we talk about how that's actually bad for consumers because the average prices are increasing. It's going to be hard for cost of living. Living standards may actually go down.
Okay, and with regards to the real world of economics, of course, it's something we massively emphasize. How much did you, and how did you gain this knowledge on the real world of economics, your real world application?
So, for example, our teacher gave us a reading log. So we would have to read the news at least once a week for micro and macro, and you'd have to write that in our booklet about the news. And obviously, it could be about anything around the world. Um, but also reading about like developed countries, developing countries, different firms. Recent big news. Mergers, for example, like between City of London and St George's. Things like that that can actually relevant to the economic spec and can help you with answering questions. Just keeping up to date and knowing what happens in the 2 years that you're doing economics at A level, it will be really impressive to examiners knowing that you keep up with economics and you have a clear passion for it too.
100%, 100%. And I think I still remember looking at your essays. Your depth of your real world knowledge was incredible. Where you just need to make sure that theoretical knowledge you have isn't enough. You need to be able to back that up with real world examples. Like I remember Tesco, we got loads of different
Mm.
Amazon, loads of different examples for everything. Pretty much, you had an example. I think that's one reason, of course, he scored so well. Just being able to back that theory up with the real world, and of course, it shows in your mark. Okay, so 1 month till your paper one. Tell me what this looked like for you. So on a daily basis, what were you doing that month before your paper one?
Yeah, so basically a month before my paper, I was doing a paper every single day. Theme, so paper one, paper two, and paper three is at least once every day, once every other day, as well as balancing out my other subjects. So it was a paper would only take 2 hours. So at least doing one a day would be very good revision and exam practice because you want to not be doing content. Your content should be perfect by then. Not reviewing any more content unless you're having an off day and like you forget something by chance, but you should be really hammering down on your exam structure, understanding content by putting out your exam styled answers and just making sure everything's refined and polished for the exam coming up.
Yeah, and coming out with those A stars, how much a month before, like in that exam season, how many hours were you actually putting in on estimate?
So a day, I think I put like because we also had study leave and the school just let us just revise how we wanted to. So at least 3 to 4 hours a day, starting my day, on a normal school day, starting my day, 8 a.m. and then finishing the day at like 11 p.m. It's more than manageable to fit 3 to 4 hours a day. Using study apps to count the hours I do, looking back at the day, being proud of how much hours I did. Um, Overall, I might have done like 8 to 9 hours per day,
Well,
covering all three subjects, so at least 3 to 4 hours on economics itself.
100%, 100%. And with regards to the papers, you mentioned, of course, incredible, and I can vouch for this. You were
Mm.
actually doing it, a paper a day, but it wasn't just the paper a day who's doing. It was then actually using and learning from that paper, reviewing that paper. Like we said, a big thing is that feedback and that loop of when you do a paper, understand what you missed out, try to improve and use it effectively. Because just doing past papers, just answering questions, if you don't get someone to look over them, if you're not filling in your gaps, it's not effective. So you weren't only just doing a paper a day, you were then improving on the day, filling in any gaps before you did the next paper. So tell me, how did you do that? What was your process in improving
Yeah.
between papers?
So obviously, I made a red, amber, green list for myself to understand where my gaps are and where my gaps aren't. So I'd focus on the red first, prioritize doing questions there, um, making sure that if I have a gap in my knowledge, I would use I would learn content, although it might not be, I shouldn't have been doing it, but if I did have like something I wasn't sure of, I would make sure I'm learning it, understanding it, just hammering it down. Maybe I'd spend the whole day, just a whole day revising just economics on that topic, so I'd understand it as soon as I could. So just practice questions and just within time of practice questions, if you don't get it at first, for example, you got like 2 out of 8 in an 8 marker, you do it over and over again, your marks will go up and up and up. I remember giving my first essay to my teacher. I used to get, I don't know, 14, 15 out of 25. Final time, I got 24, 25, like over and over again. So I knew I was very confident just doing questions over and over again and then refining my content when needed to, even if it's the night before.
100%. And this is someone who's pretty much nearly got 100% across all his papers. I think it just shows you the reality where you don't need to be anywhere near perfect to score the best. Of course, your content was at a very, very high level, but even a month before your exams, it's just that improvement cycle. You have to just pick out those points you're weakest at And that is the definition of effective revision, working on the small areas where you're weakest at, and just that cycle, of course, making sure you're mainly focusing on 80-20% on past papers, but still, you will have gaps. Even if it's late in the year, you will have gaps. But it's about patching those gaps in, and it shows by literally one of the top scorers in the country that you will have gaps. It's just about effectively filling them in and just keep on moving. But the one thing you did focus on a lot, which is totally different to predictions, which is the high yield areas. How much close to your exam were you focusing on them?
100%. So, like literally the week or two before the exam, I would be covering the high yields all the time. Like, I would be looking at my notes, reading my PLC, reading, just looking at my own exam answers, making sure I knew my chains of analysis inside and out. As a high yield, like most of the high yield questions, because obviously they won't ask you anything new. Like anything, everything has already come up. For the students going to into year 13 now, for example, there will definitely be questions repeated from before, from 2017, if not the exact same in a different style. So 100% doing questions over and again. Um, Looking at high yield is definitely very important as there's a very high chance it will come up, and it did for me for sure.
And how useful was the UDEcon high yield playlist?
To be honest, it was extremely helpful for my understanding, and um,
How much did you use it? Did you go through everything?
I'm not one to glaze, but I did watch it many times over and over again. If I came across a question, like there'll generally be a time where I was doing a past paper and I would see a question, like say example, like negative externalities, and my mind goes blank. I have no idea what to do. I've forgot everything. I go to UDEcon, I watch their like 10 to 15 minute video, and then like it's like all the information just went into my mind. Like he explains it so clearly. Everything is just sentence per sentence, word by word, is exactly what the examiners are looking for. So, for example, the pollution question that I had in the exam, I took help and I looked at UDEcon's playlist, and it helped me get probably 4 marks.
Okay, now, the days before the exam, so say it's the night before economics, any particular tips for that day before? Anything big you were doing there?
Yeah, so obviously first exam, very nervous, initially, shaking and everything. But my main tip is get sleep. Don't sleep too late. Make sure if you go into exam with brain fog, mind blank, whatever, you cannot afford that in the exams. You really cannot. You need to make sure you get at least 8 to 9 hours of rest. There's no point looking over content. I mean, I did like just right before the exam just to make sure everything is fresh in my mind, on the bus on the way to school, just before bed, making sure everything's fresh in my mind, but actually learning you can't learn anything then. You can't really practice anything then. Just making sure you know everything, fresh in your mind so you can use it to put out on your paper. But, just keep calm. Make sure you're fresh and wide awake because the papers are early. Some people, take time to, wake up. They're not fully awake till like 10, 11. You need to be on your game, on the ball by 8 for the paper. I think it's at 8:39. So you need to make sure you're awake, wide awake with fully good rest.
And since you've done it so recently, I still remember my A-level papers, and they were like 5 years ago. Tell me, how does it feel, that 2 hours in the exam hall? Run me through that range of emotions.
So at first, personally, I was feeling a mix of confidence and, anxiousness. I'm actually here for the first time. So especially on the first one, I'm actually here. This next 2 hours will define me actually getting into university. So as soon as I opened that paper, I made sure I knew, like, it's like my whole mind became a textbook. I was like flicking through pages in my mind. I was like, yeah, I remember that. I remember this. Just making sure that all the hours, all the hard work, all the countless nights staying up, all nighters, just revising and revising, just made sure that I made it worth it in the end, that I put all the effort. Just you, at first, like you'd be shaking, you'd be nervous in the very first exam. Your nerves will definitely ease after the first exam. Doing the next papers, you'll feel more confident, especially if you smash your paper one, which you definitely should have, especially if you've really, really worked your socks off. So throughout the paper near the end, um, you will be feeling a sense of relief. You've already got one A-level paper under your bag, but you also know that you're answering at a high quality, so you can be confident that the A star might be coming your way.
100%. I remember personally, and I'm pretty sure you mentioned something very similar. Just expect in your first A-level paper, first 10-15 minutes, it's going to feel your mind might go blank. It might be quite difficult. But then, like I said, like you were doing, if you've done enough time practice, if you've done enough past papers, you'll kind of forget you're in the exam room and it'll just become another past paper. And that's the stage you want to get to where you just enter the flow state. Would you say that kind of happened to you?
Yeah, definitely. To be fair, like after doing, because I started with section B and C and A, after doing the 5 and 8 marker, it was like as soon as I read the question, like because I would practice the chains of analysis for every sort of question over and over again. As soon as I read a question about monopoly or like oligopoly or like mergers, it would just like like click in my head and it would be like I know exactly what to write. I just like in my head it was frustrating because like my hands wouldn't work as fast as my brain. I just want to put everything on the page as soon as possible. So obviously, neat handwriting, put everything in orderly, not making sure I don't miss any information at all. But you basically do reach that flow state very quickly if you know what you're doing. So yeah, you should feel a high level of confidence during the exam.
100%, 100%. Okay, I want to really attribute this to his hard work. So we mentioned the high yield playlist where he'd gone through, and I remember him telling me he'd gone through every single video and just analysed, and pretty much he knew it inside out. And I literally still remember that paper one, that monopolies question, where I'm pretty sure he came out the exam telling me you remembered loads, and it's all through the hard work. You'd watch the videos, you'd watch them on repeat, and then you'd pretty much internalise, you'd made notes on them, and it really showed in your exam. And how much do you think that eases your exam pressure? Just seeing exam questions you've seen before, pretty much repeating the exam.
Yeah, so like 100% Monopoly, when I saw that question, I was so happy to see it because it's, one of the most high yield, especially being a high yield topic and something that I've done over and over again. So seeing that made my stresses during the exam really like lower because I knew exactly what to say, exactly how it would benefit consumers and funds, for example, in the evaluation. Like I knew off the top of my head. So yeah, knowing that, yeah, it basically like helped me increase my confidence, knew that after doing it multiple times over that I would smash a question for sure.
And it shows that the resources are out there, but again, it's all to do with hard work and the time he put in, the time he invested. Like every single student had access to those high yield playlists, but if you put the time in, if you dedicate the time, they are who benefits the reward. But with regards to, did you do anything special on the morning of the exam? Any specific routine, like maybe like you ate something that a lot of people have, like dark chocolate, anything like that?
Yeah. So to be fair, obviously you wanted to get your mind racing, so I'd have a Red Bull every single morning and like a bowl of nuts. So for my breakfast, I don't know my mom would make me like toast an egg or like how to have a croissant. Make sure I have like something in the morning because you also need food as well.
Yeah.
Have a decent breakfast at least, cereal maybe. But on the side, I'd have a bowl of nuts, almonds especially because they help get your mind racing, and as well as a Red Bull. A Red Bull woke me up for every exam. It basically got my heart racing, my mind racing for the exams. Only for exams. I don't suggest taking a Red Bull on the right on a regular because it's not good for your blood pressure. But yeah, definitely for the exams because you want to be in uh racing mindset to be able to answer every question. So everyone has their own preferences. I did almonds and Red Bull. People, but just at least have a good breakfast at least at the bare minimum.
100%. Also, and just want to ask you something in particular. So, you opened the exam. Was there any question? Of course, you scored perfectly, almost 97% on your paper one. Um, was there any question where you felt like when you were reading the exam question, you didn't know how to answer?
I don't know if it was paper one, maybe it was paper two, but it was something about a joint venture, yeah, joint venture. So that was a very niche marking point, but on the spec, and I really didn't cover it at all. When I saw it, I was like, damn, I'm a bit stuck here. So I read over the context, the extracts A, and using common sense, a joint venture, you can kind of understand from the word joint that is obviously something to do with two companies.
Yeah.
So like if you don't know, like obviously you might not know everything in the paper, but obviously you have covered everything at least a few times. So using your common sense as well and the extracts provided to you, um, the extracts really do help you in answering at least to section B. Section A, you either know it or you don't. It's nothing else really to say there. There wasn't a question really typically apart from that I struggled with in answering. Because for me, I knew everything inside and out. Like there's not a question that I thought like I could add a bit more to after the exam. I was like, I knew I put every single answer perfectly, and considering I got those high 90s in the end, that showed that.
Okay, so coming out your papers, of course, your first paper you smashed it with 97%. But how were you feeling after that paper?
So obviously at first, I kind of felt stressed. I was asking my friends, what did you get in this question? I called you up and I was like, is this what I got correct? In Monopoly, I wrote this. Is this fine? I actually do remember for my paper two, what the essay question asked you. I talked about, I can't remember the question at the moment right now, but I asked you, oh, is this fine? Some of my friends told me that's not okay. I don't know, I'm checking with you. And I was really stressing after that. And you were like, yeah, it's fine, it should be fine. So, obviously, you're going to have stress at first. You want to ask friends, you want to ask people, check online. Is what you said correct? Is what you said fits the marking, etc. So you're going to have doubts. And then, obviously, I didn't know if I believed, what you said, what other people said about me getting correct. Obviously, my own self-doubt itself. And then obviously on the results day, seeing those marks, seeing the 97, 96, 95, um, kind of put all those doubts, to bed, that you're gonna feel stress, you're gonna feel doubts after your papers, you're gonna feel like, did I do enough? Did I even put enough? Did I answer correctly? You're just gonna have to put trust and confidence into your ability and just carry on, move on to the next one, and then you can enjoy your summer afterwards.
100%, 100%. And I think it really shows that even the highest level of students, the ones who are pretty much perfecting the papers, nearly getting 100%, they still come out the exam thinking they haven't done well. So I would not worry about how you're thinking after the exam. Just leave it all out on the paper, do everything you can, and just leave it there. And then just, it's about the mentality as well. Even if you don't feel like you've done the best on the paper, that didn't stop you. Even if you didn't feel like you didn't score as well on that paper, even though you got 97% on it, you didn't let it affect your ability to prepare for the next one. Because as you know, even with paper two to paper three, that gap is essential, and that is the biggest way you prepare for paper three. And if you slack off in that period of time, that would have really affected your grade, don't you think? So if you were to start year 12 again, what tip would you give yourself at the end of year 12? What would you wish you did earlier in year 12?
100%. So this is actually a conversation I've had with my parents a lot. So I could have had a much easier journey during A levels, from the get-go. As soon as year 12 starts, people think, if you move to a new sixth form like I did as well, spend the first few months, enjoying, getting to know the people. You can't really do that. Maybe a week max to get to know people, etc. But it's all for yourself. It's for all your grades. Let's say October max. You really have to start revising, locking in, because you learn like a month content of then. You have to be reviewing. You have to start questions as soon as possible. Generally, starting questions for maths and economics, especially, getting those questions in ASAP will help you, make sixth form seem much less evil as it was. The only reason I think year 13 and sixth form in general was bad is because I really slacked off in year 12 as a general as well, even though I got my A stars predicted. I just really slacked off. And I think if you really are so consistent with the work you put in, you can only expect your A levels to go great and your sixth form journey to go well as well.
Perfect. And same thing for year 13. Is there anything in year 13, even though you pretty much perfected A level of economics, is there anything you wish you did a bit earlier, or any particular tip you'd have to year 13?
Um, to be honest, the tips that I would give that I did myself, basically would just be from the start of this September. Everyone tells you about how hard year 13 is, so you really, put your socks on, you really, get ready for it, you really, put your hard work into it. So from the very start, the very first day of year 13, you have to be working hard, at least 3 to 4 hours outside of school, at least on your subjects, doing extra work, doing revision. If you didn't do so well in year 12, you need to do even more, which is what I kind of did, putting a lot more effort into, especially after my mocks, because mocks come so quickly, and then A levels come so quickly. Like I remember the other day, literally having an assembly being about, oh, your mocks are coming up so soon, and then here I am saying with a few days after results, with a A star. Year 13, sixth form goes so quick, but it's the hardest 2 years of your life, and it's the 2 years you really should sacrifice in order to be in the position I am right now.
100%, 100%. And that's the position we aspire to be in, all students aspire to be.
Plus,
Very cool. Just one more thing. Anything would you'd say is unique to you? So any small thing you did which you feel like not many students do, which was quite
mm,
useful, or anything that a lot of students do which you don't think is useful.
hmm, there might be a bit of debate about this, but for me, for example, um, it might be because I had, you know, personal problems at home, but I would go to the library to revise. For me, it would be like a different environment at home because at home for me, it would be like it's my comfort, the place I chill and relax and sleep. Going outside, actually getting changed, not being in like my pajamas working at home. I felt like I had to be in an environment around other people who were studying, hopefully not messing around in your library. It kind of made me think, this is my competition around me. This are the people who I'm working, I need to work harder against to get good grades. So it's kind of like putting yourself in an environment where there are other, outside of your comfort zone, literally, because everyone's home is their comfort zone. So you need to get out of that. You need to put yourself in environment, like even after school, I'd stay in the library for like until 6, 7 p.m. Make sure that I'm working, super hard and making sure that putting in hours and hours that other people wouldn't. So you have to be unique in the hours that you put in. Because like for example, I had a study app that I would have with my friends. I'd always have the most hours every single day on the study app. So just making sure you have that drive and determination, and making sure you're not in a comfort zone. Just put yourself out there. Make sure you're not, feeling, safe at home, and just making sure you're doing the most, basically.
So, how did UDEcon help you achieve the A star and, of course, the 97%?
So basically, you do econ help me perfect my exam technique. My essay structures has made me able to, know exactly when I see a question how to answer it. So obviously now I'm really good in understanding my content as well with UD Econ, and with the application included, my exam structure and exam technique has become perfected in my exam results as shown. So UDEcon has really helped me make sure that my A levels and my exams went almost perfect. So yeah, I can only thank him for that.
No worries. And and yeah, of course, and I think a big thing about Ammar was his relentless mentality, his hard work. Of course, there's no way stars without the hard work. Okay, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks, a massive thanks for Ammar for coming on this podcast. Of course, we've had quite a long journey, but that journey does not end now. He will be quite a frequent appearer on UDEcon. So yeah, 100%. If you would like to get in touch with Ammar, click the links below. You can get in touch with him. But yeah, till next time. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll let Ammar say any last few words if you'd like.
Yeah, no, yeah, thank you for it's been an honor to experience my A-level journey with you. And I'll be looking forward to hopefully put my experience and my knowledge onto any students who wish for my help. Obviously, freshly done A levels, economics, going on to do a degree at it at university, probably the best university in the UK, LSE. So hopefully, you can come to me for any help, for any advice, and I'd love to be someone who can get you that A star.